The seating chart had my name at table 18, tucked in the corner near the kitchen doors, mixed with catering staff and venue employees. My cousin Rachel's wedding reception had 300 guests, and I'd been placed with the people serving them. "We put you somewhere quiet," Rachel had explained earlier with false brightness. "You always seem uncomfortable at big social events. And honestly, the important tables are for Brandon's business contacts. You understand." Brandon, the groom, was a commercial real estate broker who'd spent the entire rehearsal dinner talking about his massive deals and game-changing negotiations. When someone had asked what I did, Rachel had jumped in before I could answer. "Olivia has a little online business," she'd said dismissively. "Handmade jewelry or something. It's very crafty." I'd opened my mouth to correct her, but Brandon had already moved on, laughing about some property sale. Nobody had seemed interested in the actual answer, so I'd let it go. What Rachel didn't know was that my little online business was Meridian Technologies, a software company I'd founded 7 years ago that had just closed a $340 million acquisition deal with TechCore Industries. The announcement was scheduled to go live at 8 p.m. It was currently 7:43 p.m. I sat at table 18 between a server named Marco and the venue's event coordinator, both of whom were polite but clearly confused about why a guest was seated with staff. "Family politics," I explained with a slight smile. Marco nodded sympathetically. "Say no more. I've worked enough weddings to understand." At the head table, Rachel and Brandon held court. His parents, wealthy, connected, and very impressed with themselves, flanked them. Brandon's father owned a chain of luxury car dealerships. His mother sat on several charity boards and made sure everyone knew it. During cocktail hour, she'd cornered me near the bar. "So you're the cousin with the little Etsy shop?" she'd said with a patronizing smile. "How quaint. It must be nice to have a hobby that makes a bit of pocket money." "It's not exactly. Brandon was just telling us about his latest commercial property deal. $12 million. Can you imagine?" She'd patted my arm. "But hobbies are important too, dear. Everyone needs a creative outlet." I'd excused myself before saying something I'd regret. Now, as dinner was served, an elegant plated meal that I ate with the catering staff, I checked my phone. The press release would go live in 11 minutes. TechCore's PR team had coordinated with major financial news outlets. Bloomberg, Reuters, The Wall Street Journal, all set to publish simultaneously. My phone buzzed with a message from my CFO. "Stock price already climbing in after-hours trading. This is going to be huge. Enjoy the wedding." I smiled slightly and put the phone away. Brandon stood for his toast, champagne glass raised. He was already tipsy, his voice too loud, his confidence inflated by alcohol and audience attention. "I want to thank everyone for being here," he began. "Especially my incredible wife Rachel, who somehow agreed to marry a guy like me." Applause and laughter. "And I want to thank my parents for teaching me what real success looks like. Dad always said, work hard, make big deals, and never settle for small thinking." He gestured broadly. "That's what separates the winners from from everyone else." His eyes found me at table 18 and his smirk widened. "We're grateful to have everyone here, even family members with their little hobbies and side hustles. Because that's what family is, supporting each other no matter what level we're operating at." He raised his glass. "To real careers and real success." The room erupted in applause. Rachel beamed. Brandon's parents looked proud. At table 18, Marco winced. "That was pointed." "Very," I agreed calmly. The first dance began, Rachel and Brandon swaying to a romantic ballad while guests watched and photographed. The DJ had dimmed the lights, creating an intimate atmosphere. My phone buzzed. 8 p.m. exactly. The press release was live. It started with confused murmurs near the bar where several guests were checking their phones. Then more phones came out. Then someone gasped audibly. The DJ's music continued, but the attention in the room had fractured. Guests were clustering in small groups, showing each other their phone screens, whispering urgently. Brandon's father pulled out his phone, scrolled, and went absolutely pale. Rachel noticed the disturbance, her smile faltering as she danced. Brandon, oblivious, kept swaying. Then someone, one of Brandon's business contacts, stood abruptly and shouted across the room, "Holy shit! Olivia Chin just sold her company for $340 million. The music stopped. Every head in the room turned toward table 18. Brandon stopped mid-dance step, his arms still around Rachel. What? The guest held up his phone, voice carrying in the sudden silence. Meridian Technologies, the software company, just got acquired by TechCore Industries. $340 million deal. The founder and CEO is. He scrolled, then looked directly at me. Olivia Chen. Age 33. Based in this city. That can't be right, Brandon said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Olivia does jewelry or something. I'm reading it right here on Bloomberg, the man insisted. Meridian Technologies, founded 7 years ago, specializing in enterprise security software. Fortune 500 client list. The acquisition is being called one of the most significant tech deals of the year. Rachel's face had gone from confused to horrified as understanding dawned. Her eyes found me across the room. Brandon's mother pulled out her own phone, hands shaking as she scrolled. Oh my God. It's true. There are photos. That's her. She held up her phone showing the press release photo. Me in a business suit, standing in Meridian's headquarters with our logo behind me. Professional, confident, unmistakably CEO. The room erupted. Guests swarmed their phones, frantically Googling. Conversations exploded. She's been running a multi-million-dollar company? Rachel said she sold jewelry online. Brandon just called her a hobbyist. That toast, oh my God, that toast. $340 million. She was sitting with the catering staff. Brandon stood frozen on the dance floor, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. Rachel had her hand over her mouth, tears forming. Brandon's father pushed through the crowd toward me, his earlier dismissiveness replaced with frantic business interest. Olivia. I had no idea. We should talk. I have connections in tech investment opportunities. I'm sure you do, I said calmly, staying seated at table 18. His mother appeared beside him, society polish cracking. This is incredible. Why didn't you say something? We would have seated you at the head table, introduced you to everyone. Would you? I asked quietly. Or would you have dismissed me anyway because I wasn't performing well the way you expected? She flushed. More guests approached, suddenly eager to know me, to claim connection, to discuss business. Brandon's groomsman, who'd barely acknowledged me earlier, now wanted to talk tech and investments. I remained seated, Marco the server beside me trying not to laugh at the chaos. Rachel pushed through the crowd, mascara running, Brandon trailing behind her looking shell-shocked. Olivia, Rachel said desperately. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You never said you were a C. You never asked, I replied. You assumed. When people asked what I did, you interrupted to call it a little online business before I could explain. But you could have corrected me. I tried. Multiple times. Thanksgiving, I mentioned Meridian was expanding. You changed the subject. At Christmas, I explained we'd landed a Fortune 500 contract. You asked if that meant I'd finally get a real job. At your engagement party, I tried to discuss our Series B funding. You literally walked away mid-sentence to talk to Brandon's friends. Each example hit like a physical blow. Rachel's face crumpled. Brandon stepped forward, his earlier smirk completely gone. The toast. Oh God, the toast. I said. You said I had a little hobby. A side hustle. That I wasn't operating at your level. I stood finally, looking him in the eye. For context, your biggest deal was $12 million. My company's annual revenue last year was $87 million. The acquisition you're all reading about values the company I built at $340 million. My personal stake is approximately 62%. The math hung in the air. Someone gasped as they calculated it. You're worth over $200 million, Brandon's business contact said, awestruck. On paper, I corrected. After the deal closes. But yes. The reception had transformed into chaos barely masked as celebration. The carefully planned evening, first dance, toasts, cake cutting, had been completely derailed by breaking financial news. Wedding guests clustered around phones, reading articles about the acquisition. Several business publications had already posted analysis pieces. One headline visible on a nearby phone: Meridian Technologies sale. How CEO Olivia Chen built a tech empire in 7 years. Rachel's mother found me, her expression stricken. Olivia, honey, I'm so sorry. We should have asked more questions. We should have been interested. I just assumed when Rachel said jewelry business. You assumed I was unsuccessful, I finished gently. Because successful people announce it loudly, right? They perform wealth. They make sure everyone knows. I didn't, she floundered. I drive a 10-year-old car, I said. I live in a modest apartment. I don't wear designer clothes or flash jewelry. By your metrics, I looked unsuccessful. So you treated me like I was. That's not fair, Brandon's mother protested, having overheard. How are we supposed to know? By asking. By showing basic interest in your family member's life. By not dismissing someone's career as a hobby before understanding what it actually involves. The event coordinator approached cautiously. Miss Chin, there are reporters outside. They heard about the acquisition announcement and that you're here. Should I? Tell them I'm celebrating my cousin's wedding, I said. No interviews tonight. But the damage to Rachel's perfect evening was done. Guests were more interested in discussing my acquisition than celebrating her marriage. Brandon's business contacts had shifted their attention entirely to me. His parents' social standing had taken a hit. Everyone now knew they'd dismissed and mocked someone worth hundreds of millions. I found Rachel alone on a terrace, her perfect wedding composure shattered. I ruined your wedding, I said, though we both knew that wasn't quite accurate. You didn't ruin it. I did. She wiped her eyes. By seating you with catering staff. By introducing you as my cousin with a little business. By never caring enough to actually understand your life. Why didn't you ask? I said softly. We used to be close. When did that change? When Brandon came into my life, she admitted. His family has money, connections, status. I got caught up in it. Started measuring success the way they do. By appearances, by performance, by how loudly you announce your achievements. You were quiet about your work, so I assumed it wasn't impressive. Success doesn't require an audience, I said. I know that now. She laughed bitterly. Brandon spent 10 minutes in his toast bragging about a $12 million deal. You've been sitting quietly with a $340 million company. The irony is killing me. The difference is I built something, I said. Real technology solving real problems. His deals move money around. My work creates value. She nodded, crying harder now. Everyone's going to remember this wedding as the night I seated my millionaire CEO cousin with the catering staff. It's already trending on social media. Someone posted video of Brandon's toast with the caption, "This didn't age well." Social media is temporary, I said. What matters is what you do next. What do you mean? Do you want a relationship with me? The real me, the CEO, the tech founder, the person who built something significant. Or do you want to keep your distance because I'm not playing the wealth game the way Brandon's family expects? I want a relationship, Rachel said immediately. I want my cousin back. The one I looked up to before I got stupid about status and appearances. Then we start fresh, I said. After your honeymoon. Coffee, just us, and you can ask about my actual life. She hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry. For all of it. The reception limped through the remaining events. The cake cutting was subdued. The bouquet toss was perfunctory. Guests left early, most still absorbed in their phones reading about the acquisition. Brandon found me near the exit looking thoroughly humbled. That toast, he said quietly. I was an ass. A complete ass. Yes, I agreed. Rachel told me you tried to explain your work multiple times and we shut you down. We assumed because you weren't flashy, you weren't successful. That's exactly right. He ran a hand through his hair. My $12 million deal. I was so proud. I made sure everyone at this wedding knew about it. And you were sitting there having just sold a company for $340 million, eating dinner with the servers, saying nothing. Because the deal speaks for itself, I said. I don't need to announce it at family weddings to feel successful. Teach me that, he said unexpectedly. How to measure success by what you build instead of what you broadcast. Because clearly I've been doing it wrong. I studied him. This man who'd smirked at my little hobby just hours ago, now genuinely humbled. Start by respecting people regardless of how their success appears, I said. The quiet person in the corner might be building empires. The loudest voice in the room might be compensating for insecurity. Real confidence doesn't need an audience. He nodded slowly. I'll work on that. And Olivia? Congratulations. Really. What you built is incredible. I drove home that night in my 10-year-old car, through the city where I'd built Meridian Technologies from a 2-person startup to a company worth hundreds of millions. My phone showed hundreds of messages. Congratulations from colleagues, interview requests from media, partnership inquiries from investors. And one from Rachel: "Thank you for not giving up on me. I'll be better. I promise." The wedding had become infamous. The wedding where the CEO was seated with catering staff was already trending. Videos of Brandon's toast, contrasted with news of my acquisition, had gone viral. Business publications were analyzing it as a case study in assumptions and appearances. But none of that mattered as much as the simple truth. I'd built something real. Something valuable. Something that changed how companies handled security software. I'd done it quietly, without fanfare, measuring success by impact rather than applause. Rachel and Brandon would learn that lesson eventually. Or they wouldn't. Either way, the company I'd built would stand as proof that real success doesn't need a spotlight. Sometimes it just needs table 18 and a press release timed perfectly to interrupt the first dance.